Hey guys, we are reading Open Book by Jessica Simpson, and we are on chapter 16, Playing Dress Up. And then we are also going to be reading chapter 17 as well, and that's Desire and Possession. So it is going to be a longer video today, but we're good. Alright, I'm going to start reading. Chapter 16. Playing Dress Up. June 2006. The fit models walked into the showroom one by one to line up in front of us. I looked over at my mom and she was beaming. Near to her was Beth Plyer, my old dance teacher, whose smile widened with each model's steps. Mom was the president of the creative director of the Jessica Simpson collection, while Beth was brand manager. The stitching on that one, I said, pointing at one shoe. Let's make it tontal, my mom said. My mom and I said at the same time. We laughed. The collection was a godsend for us. Starting the fashion line was my mother's dream, one she held on to since she was a little girl. My great-grandmother, who had a sixth sense, used to watch my mom cut paper dolls to dress them up. In scraps of fabric, she gave my mom a deer foam slipper box to keep them in. This is your dream box, she told her. One day you're going to be a fashion designer. What's that? She remembers asking. She always styled me when I started out. And during newlyweds, people would contact her to give me clothes to wear. Mom noticed that what I wore on the show would then sell out in stores. Since everyone was always asking my mom what I was wearing, she wanted to cut out the middleman. She told my dad to find someone willing to do a licensing deal so we could just make the clothes ourselves. One thing that was important to us was that whatever we did had to be affordable. I had a shawl, a simple cream one, and girls constantly asked me where I got it. It was from Barney's, and I felt bad telling them that because the price tag was out of the reach for a lot of my fans. I wanted to give them a feeling of luxury without having to spend a lot of money. Dad puts out feelers and approaches Vince Camuto, who became our fairy godfather. He was a footwear legend who had created Nine West, then sold it for about $900 million. Vince was a suave, but kinda mastermind, who first learned what women really wanted to wear when he was a poor Lower East Side kid who started out as a cobbler and then charmed his way to the floor of the store on the Fifth Avenue, selling to rich New York City ladies. When my dad approached him, Vince was nearly 70, and I think he was too busy working to know me from MTV. He asked his son John, who had seen me on Newlyweds, what he thought of me. I'd bank on her, John said, and my life changed. It only took one dinner with Vince and his beautiful wife, Louise, for us all to click. I talked about my own passion for dressing girls going back to childhood. When I was styled everyone for prom, I would sometimes pick out clothes to buy myself because I knew it would also look cute on one of the girls in the youth group. I'd lend them out and make me love the piece even more. With Vince, I was adamant that I make clothes that could appeal to all women. Not everyone has the body of someone who lives in New York or Los Angeles, I said, and Vince smiled. I want to sell to the average girl because I love that girl. Vince had built an empire of footwear, but he didn't just want a shoe license with me. He saw the potential for lifestyle empire. Vince paid me $15 million for the master license, and people thought he was crazy. Jessica really is America's sweetheart, and I think her fans will grow with her, he told Women's Wear Daily when we announced, if this is not a $1 billion or $2 billion brand, I'll be shocked. He built a 7,000 square foot showroom for me in the Macy's flagship store in Herald Square, New York, and then went to Italy to find these gorgeous chandeliers and white marble fixtures to put in the showrooms to both Macy's and the Southern chain Dillard's. It was a sign to the customer and to me that this was a serious venture. My mom created an office for her and Beth right over the garage of her house. She was at it almost every day, creating the color palette and picking out materials and fabrics. Beth helped the logics, and we gradually involved more family friends, still keeping the operation tight. We started the line with shoes, specifically a high-heeled red cowboy boot that cost $69. With Vince, everything was for the love of shoes. We all wanted to make money, too. And we did right away. But Vince showed me how important it was to put your heart and soul in a sole of a shoe your customers are walking on. The cowboy boots sold out immediately, and we brought in $50 million in wholesale goods in first year alone. As we expanded to denim and sportswear, then handbags, home, and accessories, my mom and I hired designers in every category. We would collaborate with them in the intentional design meeting, suggest a color palette and style that we thought should be part of the brand. The design team would then go do their magic and come back for a second mid-design meeting where we would see mock samples so we could make tweaks and changes. From there we have a final design meeting where we see the finished samples, and that would be making their debut on the market. That's where we would pull the pieces that just didn't work and add finishing touches to the collection. My mother could execute ideas like none other. She brought all the effectively penny savings of the preacher's wife and her new calling. Then I would do 8 or 10 hours a day at the showroom, either approving or tweaking the designs. I have an attention to detail that sometimes drives me crazy, but while being a professionalist, it's hard. When it comes to design, it is so rewarding. If I asked for a change, I would remember it the next time I saw the piece. I think people were surprised by how involved I wanted to be. I trusted my mom with the keys completely, but I still like to get in and drive every now and then, which is what I was doing that day in the showroom. One of the fit models was new, a cute girl with long brown hair pulled back. She was willowing and graceful and kept turning her heels to better show the shoe. Would you buy it? I asked her. She paused, her eyes widened. This happened with the new models every time. They were so used to being treated like mannequins by designers, so they didn't expect that I was gradually interested in how they felt wearing the shoe or the accessory. The fit models would make a round of all the showrooms, and they know the quality of their own people's stuff. I want to know if they will wear the shoe and can they actually walk in them. You're not hurting anybody's feelings, I said. We're in these meetings to fix things. You'll still get paid if you hate the shoe. I like it, she said. But I'm tall, she said. Mom and I looked at each other and did a quick nod. I'm on the shorter side, so the taller the heel, the more confident I am. I tell people live on the stilts, but I needed to translate my preferences to make something for everyone. Maybe we should take the heel down an inch, my mom said. Half inch, I begged. 3/4, she said and laughed. That works. I asked the model. She smiled. Yeah, she said. Then I totally wear them. I put my fist up in triumph. Sold, I said. I was interesting to see my mom in action. This was her calling, something she could work on with me that didn't involve my dad. Until recently, my mom was very shy and always turned down negative profiles and generally refused to walk red carpets with me. This was all hers. This was what they lived and breathed. Fashion wasn't my dream, though. Of course, it's been fun. My payoff was always making people feel beautiful and confident. That moment, the model smiled. The bigger the girls eyed me who thanked me for not making plus-size looks that were only about covering up. Curves should be glorified. People think they need to hide a mom bod, but the body literally is built life for someone else. I want all girls to put on my looks and have 5 people telling them they love their outfit. It's why our fit models have a range of body types and why I never diet for my ad campaigns. If I am 10 pounds heavier, then I am 10 pounds heavier. Sure, it helps and have control over the shot. I get to choose a photographer, so there's trust. But once I was handed the reins of Jessica Simpson collection, I could have steered the business where my mom and I wanted us to go. A lot of celebrities crash and burn with clothing lines, mainly because they let their pride get in the way. They either try to sell something that isn't like anything on the, stored stuffed closet, or it is out of the touch with a truly wearable, or they try to super high-end sample sizes, $400 each. I don't need a price tag on something with my name on it to be high, just so I feel fancy. I might buy that stuff, like a lot of that stuff. I respect it, but I don't need to sell it. You have to let go on your ego. This business, I always say, people can walk all over me as long as it's my logo on my bottom of my shoe. Another reason I have succeeded when other celebrities haven't is one small but very important decision I made when I signed a non-compete clause. I didn't want Vince to be able to sign any other celebrities without asking me. I am not giving up my floor space in department stores so some pop star or reality TV person can launch a line. The point is that you must take care of yourself even when you are given the amazing opportunity. My mom could ace the bar exam if she took it tomorrow because she has read so many contracts. I just Google the words I don't know, she tells me. You need to nurture your dreams the way you would a best friend or child, and you need someone you can trust on board with you. I am beyond grateful to my mom for all she put into this brand. You've been listening to me talk, so I want to hear from you. Press pause for a second on your life and ask someone, what is my calling? What makes you feel passionate? If you don't immediately have an answer, try bonding beyond something specific. My mom was specific fashion, but mine was more broad. I like making people feel good, whether I am doing that through music, which came naturally to me, or through writing, which is harder on me but brings a different reward. I'm driven by this simple impulse. I think something we get so caught up in the vessel of the work rather than what matters, the spirit that fills it. While I was in that showroom, I had a secret. I am sure soon as I left, I texted him. I first met John Mayer a new year before the February 2005 party Clive Davis threw during Grammy weekend. He ran up to me to tell me how much he loved the song I wrote, With You. We were on the same label then, Columbia, so he would randomly show up at events like my album release party. What the F is John Mayer doing here? Nick asked me then. I didn't invite him, I said. Nick didn't trust him, and he probably shouldn't have. John began to write me immediately, and I was flattered, but only interested in him as an artist. He was about 2 albums into his career, but everyone could tell he was a singular talent as a guitar player and songwriter. His notes quickly became more intimate, and he told me he saw something in me that no one else did. He asked what I would want to just be famous as a wife. He said I was so much more than the world perceives me to be. As soon as I was single, he made his move, and this time I was interested. In the summer of 2006, I was still dating and using those relationships to figure out who I was. There were a few guys with big hearts and strong personalities, and I found myself changing to suit them. John wasn't having it and told me he wanted to have all me or nothing. He assured me he didn't want to make me anybody else. Early on, he wrote a song about me, and he made it so plain and thought, oh, he does want me. What the heck? Oh, he does want me to be myself, so I chose him. Casey felt uncomfortable with my decision to date John. I always saw Casey as my friend first, but she always very professional as well. John was Columbia artist, and she knew John from even before he signed. She had already been put in the middle of a situation with Nick, and she didn't want to go through that again. But Casey was also uncomfortable with a lot of my decisions back then. She was worried in my rush to start a new life. I was losing the girl she had first met. She quit being my assistant, telling my father first, and then offering to help train the replacement. I'd grown so dependent on her that it felt like she was leaving me. I felt abandoned. Our friendship was strained for quite some time. John and I dated in secret for months, with dinners at my house and meetups in hotels. My security team would lead me through the back entrance to the Soho Hotel, then up a shabby service elevator when he visited me. He would have his hood up, but he wasn't on a radar of any paparazzi. John was a night owl like me, both of us unable to turn our brains off. He said that I had kept him company in the middle of the night with a proactive infomercials. In the beginning, there was a give and take. I saw him combing his hair and told him not to bother it, that it looked better wild, like a dark romantic hero. He would ask me for advice on outfits, and just seeing him wear something I picked out made me feel proud. He saw me writing in my journal, and I left a note in there for me. If I wrote you a note, would you read it? It began, and sure enough, he's jagged handwriting, so different than my swirls. I was in love. It seemed mutual. Again and again, he told me he was obsessed with me, sexually and emotionally. The connection was so strong that he made me feel seductive. And he spoke about sex in my body in the way that made me feel powerful and least physical. His focus on me was the opposite of my marriage. I would get up to go to the bathroom, and John would ask, "Where are you going?" While I was married, my ex-husband couldn't be bothered to figure out what city I was in. It felt safe to be so desired. I knew John would never cheat on me, and that confidence was a new feeling for me. Where I felt insecure in the beginning was that I always felt that I was falling short on the potential he saw in me. I constantly worried that I wasn't smart enough for him. He was so clear and treated conversation like a friendly competition that he had to win. He would get going riffing from one subject to another so quickly that I would get lost. One minute he was explaining the start of his Rolex collection, and then another he was going on about a collector who he was jealous of. Then the natural jealousy, then the construct of the time he heft of it on your wrist. When I was tired to leap back and to say something to add to the dialogue he was having with himself, he would challenge what I said because that's how he saw the give and take of conversation. Sometimes he wouldn't let go of the questioning why I thought a certain way until it had me second-guessing myself. I'd get quiet, take another sip of alcohol, then another, and wonder why I couldn't just sit on the couch with him without getting so anxious. I even asked one of my girlfriends who knew him for advice just based on her speaking to him. It was the start of a bad habit, asking people who were not dating John how to date John. You have to be a strong person to make the contribution in the conversation, she said. You can talk to him about anything because he just wants to learn about stuff. You don't have to just talk about what you think he wants to talk about. So I spoke about what mattered most to me and what I was most confident in my faith. He found it fascinating, but of course would challenge me on what I believed. I think he envied the steadfastness because it was one of the few things in life he couldn't quite figure out, but could only do that much. So my anxiety would soon take over, and because I was such a sensual person, my solution was just to give him love. The mix of sex and love was easy part, because I had plenty of both to give. We were able to see each other in secret throughout the summer and the start of the campaign to promote my album, The Public Affair. As opposed to Nick, I wrote a fun album, an 80s radio throwback that was an ode of freedom. Not one single song was about him, even though people assumed the cover I did, a Patty Griffin's Let Him Fly, was directed at him. It was my way to assuring myself I need to let go of the Johnny Knoxville. I was proud that I had written credits on 10 out of the 13 songs. The first single was The Public Affair, and when it came out in June 29, Billboard called the first single a perfect record. It did fine numbers, but it was clear when I tried to promote the record that people weren't ready to see me so happy after my divorce. The album came out August 26th, a month before John's release of his album, Continuum. I got the highest first week sales on my career, but the numbers fell a lot immediately. That album was never going to do as well as In This Skin. Still, I was excited that John and I had albums coming out around the same time. We loved that we had this amazing secret we had kept. And then we didn't have it. The week of my release, someone from my team broke the story to the tabloids. Coming just a few after my album came out, it looked like a full-on amateur stunt orchestrated to sell both albums. I fired the person. John was worried he seemed in on it and felt that his artist integrity was in jeopardy. I was in New York and he exploded on me, breaking up with me over email on August 31st. He posted a cover of the Public Enemy, Don't Believe in Hype, on his blog as his response to the media. I was humiliated and thought he was out of my life for good. He wasn't. Still, I was trapped in the middle of promoting an album. I was hired a new PR agency and clicked the Lauren Oscillator, who would later become one of my best friends. She was my age and understood what I was going through. I was lucky to have her with me in that tough time. The initial conversations with reporters were already a pretense to get to their "what about Nick?" question. Now I had to play dumb when asked about John, out of the respect for him too. I didn't lie. I just said he was a musician. I truly respected that, and I had known for a few years. I left out that he put me on a pedestal and kicked it over on his way out the door. There was one bright spot. The breakup was right before the MTV Video Music Awards, and one day I was on the VMA swag suit at New York Bryant Park Hotel. A swag suit is where they give celebrities things they didn't need, so they will become walking advertisements for products. I won a silver 2017 Crystal Crossfire luxury sports car, a two-seater paparazzi magnet. I wasn't really surprised since all the celebrities were there. I was the one most likely to have a photo with a car featured in the tabloids. Maybe because I was so depressed. I wanted to make something good happen. I had stayed in touch with Casa Halagar Ilm Orphanage, which I had first visited 9 years before, with the money I'd made. I was able to help the Mama Luptia make the place a comfortable home for the kids. Not just running water and electricity, but basketball courts and vans to take the kids to school. Doing my part helped me realize that I was blessed and reminded me that God had given me this grace. I didn't take it for granted. It seemed ludicrous that I was getting a free car now. I also knew that the week before, Mama Lupta's van had broken down, and now she was using a beat-up old truck and dutifully took photos with the car outside, giving the camera a look of shock as I held a key fob. When I was done, I motioned to the Chrysler rep as I took off my sunglasses. Is it okay if I swap this for a minivan instead? I whispered. She looked at my stomach. Why would you need a minivan? I'm not pregnant, I said, rolling my eyes. It would just work better for me. They gave me a white 7-passenger Crystal Town and Country, which I later drove through the gates of the orphanage and handed the keys to Mama Luptia. The kids knew I was coming and had saved up money selling bracelets and necklaces so they could have a mariachi band greet me. Everyone was in clean red t-shirts except for a few of the tinier girls who had brightly colored dresses on. I lifted one girl when she hugged me, and we danced around to the music. I was truly happy, and at least for that moment, no man could take that from me. Chapter 17, Desire and Possession. September 2006. I had planned everything. The I Belong to Me video was going to be my way of introducing my fans to me as a grown single woman. It's a ballad by Dane Warren, and there was a lot of pressure to make the video about Nick, but I recited instead. I chose to show people my new life. I wanted the video to open with me on the mattress on the floor, just like I had at my new house. Then I went to the mirror and cut my own hair, taking a cutlass scissors to give myself a jagged bob. When I washed the makeup off my face so I could look myself and my fans in the eye, I cried real tears on the set, surprising everyone. I said goodbye to the old me and to hopes I had for Nick, Johnny, and John, and just embraced Jessica. I was very proud of it, but people weren't ready to hear I Belong to Me. They thought it should have been I Belong to Nick. I didn't anticipate so many people being mad at me, but my real fans stayed true, and I could see my heart. I broke a blood vessel in my throat before the round of the live morning shows, so I couldn't even count on my voice, but they got me through. I'm sorry, I told them over and over again. I was apologizing about my voice, but so much more. I was so sorry that I had let them down. It was a bad timing for a Pacific Affair, an album I genuinely loved, so I relied on my girlfriends. At the end of the September, my new assistant, Adrienne, and I planned a girls' trip to London to see my sister Ashley and her West End debut of Chicago. Adrienne is a good company, direct and funny, and basically took the job as a lark. She grew up with family money, so she wasn't impressed by any of the trappy of my life. We'd go shopping and she'd leave with more bags than me, which takes doing, I'll tell you. We had a few days to hang out on the London before seeing Ashley's debut, and we had the best time when I was in LA. Even when I was photographed, I was watched. There were still lots of paparazzis in London, but less people cared about taking notes of what I was eating in the restaurant. The British public just let me be. Ashley had only been in town about 2 weeks, but she already had this cute apartment, the whole new life in London. She seemed so grown up, and I was again struck by how she always had the life that she wanted, and on her terms. I know I irritated Adrian because I kept finding ways to bring the conversation back to John. I kept seeing signs and spooky spiritual things that would make me think of him. I would see a white feather and ask Adrian what it meant. Oh, Lord. We were at our hotel one day, and I went out to the balcony. I looked down at the London streets. I saw people staring up at me, but I was too high up to make out his face. His hair was wild and curly like a pictured Romeo. Adrian, I yelled, is John in London? What? She said. I didn't have to say Mayor. He always... John. I turned inside to get her to look. I swear I just saw him, I said. No way, you are crazy bonkers. I looked down again and he was gone. I did feel crazy. I still hear myself now, too, and I wonder if I imagined it. But John had a gift for showing up out of nowhere. Sure enough, the next night we went to a small party with Ashley, and John was there. I didn't have the nerve to ask him if he was outside my hotel because I knew how it would sound. He came over and started riffling with me, and that's all it took. I was hooked again. That he even talked to me with relief, and that he wanted to be with me the night felt like I was released from solitary. It was on that trip that I felt a full intensity of his obsession with me, and it was a drug to me. He studied every inch of my body, every detail of my face. He photographed me constantly to the point that I worried he was keeping souvenirs before dumping me again. He was only in London briefly, and when he flew out, we stayed in touch. Our secret was safe again. I was on the high from being with him when I went to see Ashley on stage, and she was amazing. As soon as she made her entrance, I started crying with pride. Ashley had become a pop star, but this felt like it was in her heart. I love the little girl who sang her heart out of the phenom of the opera and the Les Mis. But now she was a woman playing London's West End. Someone I didn't know but wanted to get to know. I thought about all the times she had been my backup dancer when I was too busy performing to look back and admire what a star she already was. You were shining even brighter than the lights on the stage, I told her backstage. She smiled and started to look away, but I wouldn't let her. I always knew you were so talented, but to own that stage is such a gift. It was your stage tonight, Ash. We looked at each other for a long beat, and so much that was unspoken was released. She started to tear up. This girl who was always so tough, who'd protect me all those years, even through she didn't realize she needed to. I started crying again and then laughed at myself for being so sentimental. There's something wonderful about rediscovering each other as sisters. When you're in your 20s, you have more perspective. That night, I was able to let go of a lot of guilt I had about her. Missing high school to join me on the road, she was living the artistic life she was destined to have. Ashley had to leave to do an on-camera interview with a UK show backstage, and they wanted me to join in. I looked at her, not wanting to steal her spotlight, but she nodded. My face was swollen from crying so much, but I didn't care. I wanted to make sure people knew how proud I was of her. We started waving our fingers at our faces to dry the tears. We Simpson sisters always ready to be on. It was 2 months later, late November, and John had already broken up with me again, at least once. Honestly, he did it so many times I lost track, always in an email. Sometimes it was out of the blue. Other times I knew it was coming because my light would start to dim. John loved me. When I was shining and he drew something inspiration to write from the light, he would grill me about my life, asking me questions about the men I had been with and the choices I had made. He tapped me dry. He looked at me like I was withholding something from him. He would tell me that my true self was so much greater than the person I was settling on being. Like there was some great woman inside of me waiting to come out, and I had to hurry up and find her because he wanted to love that woman, not me. He dumped me, then came back, saying he had discovered he loved me after all. Sorry, guys. I always saw it as him mercifully taking me in from the cold. Every time John returned, I thought it was a continuation of a love story, while my friend saw a guy coming back for sex with a foolish girl. One of the most times I wrote him is gushing letter thanking him for realizing I was worthy of love, and it breaks my heart to see how I practice the wording in my journal. I promise to be myself as I search to become the woman you already see. I can't even believe the acrobatics of the promising remain true to your own self while becoming the person someone wants you to be. I had gone from trying to find that woman for me, and now I had to be that woman for John. Only he could deem when I had made it. He had that kind of hold on me. He said a lot of our breakups were about me drinking and not being present for him, which was not. I was only find out much later the full truth, but I took him at his word about his motivations, and that's why I always went back. It was my fault. And if he forgave me, that was all that mattered. Or at least he made me feel like everything was my fault. He has since admitted that he was abused the ability to express himself. I had always prided myself on being smarter than everyone thought I was. For a long time, he took that from me. He made me feel dumb. I stopped understanding what was real and what was in my head. I was so afraid of disappointing him that I couldn't even text him without having someone check my grammar and spelling. This drove my mother nuts. That is a terrible relationship, she said. If you have to be scared of your misspell something, because we were so often long distance, our relationship was often over text. I treated even the most basic text from John as make or break riddles to solve. If he was annoyed with me, I would invest hours decoding the basic facts, trying to find the poetry so I could respect accordingly. Did it mean we were over? Was I supposed to stand up for myself? My anxiety would spike. I would pour another drink. It was the start of me relying on alcohol and masks my nerves. Overanalyzing his text, I would write back paragraphs of torture words and hand it to Adrian to proofread. Jess, you don't need to spell all this, she said to me once. When we were in the car heading to the appearance, don't. Then what should I say? She deleted the paragraph I'd written, wrote one word in 2 seconds, and handed it back to me. I looked down. Just say sorry. She nodded, and I sent it. Minutes later, I heard a ping and braced myself. "Thank you," he wrote. That was all he needed to hear, so I took responsibility for my actions. But I also got to the point where the intelligentized everything he said, because I felt I was not intellectually enough for him. All he really wanted was me to be myself, but I don't know who that was for him, or for me at that point. Some of my friends say I can't blame him because I handed him this power. I don't know. He did repeatedly stab me in the heart, or did I just keep running into the knife he aimed at me? And that is the end of chapter 17, guys. I will see you guys in chapter 18. Thank you guys for listening.